Welcome to Using Chatbots in the Classroom, an introduction to AI. I'm Judi Kibelstis with the Learning Resource Center South at Rowan University. The LRC-South is part of the Learning Resource Center Network, a project of the New Jersey Department of Education, Office of Special Education. The Learning Resource Center Network provides support, services, and professional development to educators and families of students with disabilities. There are 4 LRC locations across the state of New Jersey. Today, we're going to get a basic understanding of AI chatbots. We're going to explore some ways we can use these chatbots in our classrooms to support both students and teachers, and look at some strategies to really make this integration more effective. The first question is, what is AI? Artificial intelligence is the ability of a digital computer or computer-controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. This is where that idea of, intelligent computers and computers who would take over the world comes from. But what we really need to understand is that AI is already integrated into our everyday lives and has become much more apparent over the past year or so as it integrates with search engines we use all the time, like Google and Bing. There are hundreds of AI tools available, and there are many that we can use in our personal lives and in education. The difference is when ChatGPT was first released to the public, it kind of pulled that curtain back on generative AI and forced us all to start taking notice. And it's important for us to take notice. This is a 2018 report resulting from a large survey of machine learning researchers on their belief about progress in AI. Researchers predicted that AI would outperform humans in many activities over the next 10 years, such as translating languages by 2024, writing high school essays by 2026, driving a truck, self-driving cars, anyone, by 2027. So as you look at this, we see that we are already outpacing these predictions. So we really need to be prepared to use AI in the classroom because this is a critical step in helping our students prepare for their future. There are 3 basic types of AI. Reactive, something that responds to something that we put into it. Think of your Alexa, your Siri, things like that. There's predictive. These are tools that analyze our behavior and predict things for us. So your Spotify playlist, your Netflix, here's what we think you're going to like. And then finally, we have generative AI, and this is the new type of AI that's coming out now. And we're talking about the chatbots. We're talking about AI-created images, things like that. So this is what's happening. This is what is in the world right now and accessible to pretty much everyone. So we really need to plan for AI in our classrooms and model responsible use. One of the best things we can do is create a list of do's as opposed to a list of do-nots. Maybe create a rubric so students understand the best practices for how and why they can use AI in class. What we are going to discuss today are AI-powered chatbots. These are large language models, LLMs. These chatbots use artificial intelligence technology to respond to what you say in real time. And we've been using them for years on websites. Think of those little chatbots in the corner as customer service representatives. That chat feature is very obvious to know that it's not really a human on the other end of that. But chatbots are a type of generative AI, meaning that they learn as you put information into them. When you put information in, you are training them. They start with this base model that's been programmed into them, and every time you add something new, they learn. You upload information, they learn. They retrieve information, they learn. So AI is always learning, and developers are always designing new ways to interact with it. So it's going to continue to grow and change, but there are some issues that we really need to be aware of, especially when we're using it in the classroom. Using AI opens the door to a world of new opportunities, but also to a host of new challenges. The first of which is bias. Humans are at the very heart of AI, and that means that bias and some problematic content can find their way into the codes and therefore into the AI-generated information. For example, if a team of developers isn't diverse and representative, implicit bias can really easily be woven into the framework of the tool. And we saw this with facial recognition, especially when it first came out. It could not pick up people with different and darker skin tones. So the data that AI learns on can also show bias and patterns, and that teaches the AI to replicate that bias. So there's really some problematic information with this. And finally, AI is based on information, not facts. So it's not going to be able to tell the difference between a peer-reviewed journal and, a work of fiction. And then that leads to problems with accuracy. So AI chatbots pull from nearly every imaginable source on the internet, and they can't tell the difference between what is real and what is not. It's simply sourcing information. So we have to intervene and critically examine the results. And when we're talking about accuracy, we also have to look at what's real and what's not when it comes to images and videos with the idea of deep fakes. This is becoming a huge concern, especially on social media. We have fraud, there's abuse, disinformation, and even hallucinations. And hallucinations are false answers that are generated from AI as a result of, kind of the model using, a next word generator or statistic to pick the next word. There's no understanding of the content, so it just kind of creates information. And a lot of these hallucinations are showing up and they're just wrong. It's wrong information. It's not based on anything. So again, critical thinking, looking at our sources. And then finally, we really need to talk about ethics and privacy. And this is a big deal, especially in the classroom. We need to be especially concerned with privacy, data security, especially when we're dealing with minors. Be aware of the Kids Online Privacy Act. We do not want to ever enter any personal identifying information, any student information into these chatbots. We need to really be aware of that. Use generalizations, not personal information. When it comes to ethics and privacy, we also talk about copyright. And some models of AI have been accused of using copyrighted data for training purposes, which is probably what's happened in most of these situations. We heard about some of this with the SAG actor strike that went on a little while ago. They don't want this AI-generated content out there. Scarlett Johansson just got into a lawsuit where her voice was being used in an AI model that she didn't authorize it. And then for us, that kind of turns into that academic integrity question of copyright. And what does cheating now mean? And we have to really consider how we're going to redefine what cheating means in a world of AI. If plagiarism is using another human's intellectual property, and AI is this open source thing that creates individual answers to each prompt, who does that information belong to? It becomes a different kind of thing. We're going to look a little bit about that later. We also have to be aware of the digital divide. This is going to increase with AI. Some students will have access to AI, both at school and at home. They're going to have access to paid options. Some of them aren't. So we have to be aware of this. This is going to, just be a different gap that we have to address in our classrooms. And then finally, we really want to think about dependency and this dependency on technology. Think about GPS. We don't want our students to become so dependent on AI to the point where they can't think critically on their own. We don't want to have GPS taking over and nobody has a sense of direction anymore. We don't want AI taking over and replacing that human thought and that critical thinking. So if we build expectations, it really can help our students navigate this a little bit more. One other safeguard that we can explore is what's called a walled garden AI. And a walled garden is a focused chatbot. And this means that the content that goes into the chatbot itself is curated, so it eliminates some of that dark side of the web. But also in a way, that in itself is limiting. So it's only looking at certain things that have been put into it. It's not looking at, worldwide content. It's not looking at the whole, anything that's on the internet. So it's only looking at specific sources. And there's definitely pros and cons with this. There's a big pro on this and using it with students because we can limit the information that they're sourcing their information from. Notebook LM is a Google product that's great for that. It really lets them kind of target what you want to put in there, what they can ask the AI chatbot. ISTE and ASCD are two organizations that have paired together, and they're coming out with what's called a stretch AI, which is a chatbot specifically trained on information created or approved by educators, and it's going to be based on current content, like the past 3 years of best practices. So there's some great things that really do limit that and try to take away some of those hallucinations, some of that information versus facts kind of thing, and making sure that these chatbots are really looking at targeted and well thought out information. But again, pros and cons with that depending on how you're using it. One of the biggest questions educators ask when it comes to AI is AI cheating? Now this opens up all sorts of new challenges, and it really is going to force us to reimagine, assessments, especially, in education. Cheating itself has not increased, according to studies, since before ChatGPT was released. We have not had this surge in cheating. It hasn't gone, off the charts because kids are just using AI to do all their work. So what it's showing us is basically the students who want to cheat are going to cheat. It doesn't matter if they have AI or not. But having this tool available to everyone, available for free, for teachers, for students, whoever happens to be using it, really should cause us as educators to kind of shift a little bit and focus on the learning goals and the process over, a final summative product, if you will. Before we go any deeper, a quick word on AI detectors. They're really not reliable. So AI detectors are artificial intelligence that is trained on the same way that all these chatbots are. It has bias, it has information, not facts, it has all of these things in it. And they're designed to basically detect linguistic patterns and predict the likelihood of the content that it's being fed being generated by a text. So since this detection is based on machine learning algorithms, it has a lot of these same issues. So, the language patterns are going to be issues, things that we've already discussed when it comes to accuracy and information, not facts. And most studies have shown is that AI detectors are incredibly inaccurate. And that's really important. We don't want to put additional burdens on our students or even on ourselves by using something that's going to generate false positives, that we know is going to be generating false positives. So the consequences can be really severe, especially as students move up into higher grades, into higher education. It's increasing the levels of anxiety and stress for students. That is what one study has shown, because they're now trying to go out of their way to prove that their work is not AI generated. So, think of little things. AI chatbots generally struggle with math. So, maybe we kind of put something in there because they're large language, they don't understand, necessarily algebra and higher math thought and problems. They don't always understand idioms. There's still that implicit bias behind everything they do. And this all really becomes an issue. And they're seeing in studies, especially with students who are English language learners and neurodivergent students. When you're figurative language, things like that, that aren't necessarily something that the chatbot understands, that's going to be an issue. If the language patterns for these language learners is going to be a little different, that's going to cause the chatbot or the AI detector to flag it as being used as a chatbot. So the best thing that we can really do is to be proactive and to model appropriate use. And that's going to also mean that we have to kind of be proactive on ourselves. We have to be able to willing and to adapt assignments, make things that are more project-based, or encourage students to use their own voice and opinion where mattered, because AI isn't going to tell us a personalized story. It's going to feed out very generic information. But when it comes time to cheating and to think about plagiarism and cheating, we really do have to start thinking a little differently. This is a graphic that was designed by Matt Miller. He's from Ditch That Textbook. And this was one of his earlier graphics, but I think it very simply shows, a really good reminder of what we're looking at. So how can we appropriately use AI in our classrooms? So at the very top is work done completely by AI. And this isn't what we're looking for in any assignment. There's no original thought, there's no skill development, there's no critical thinking. At the bottom, we have student created with no AI or internet. Well, this isn't cheating, obviously, because the student's creating it, but there's a different level of problems here, because we want our students to be able to, produce work that's authentic to the real world, and that's going to be authentic to their futures. So not using any type of electronic supports isn't really the world they're going to be living in. We all do it every day in our jobs. We should expect our students to be using it at least somewhat. But then everything in the middle, there's kind of a little bit of back and forth. Where's the line between authentic work that prepares students for tomorrow and, provides, original thinking and critical thinking, and, where we draw the line for where they can use that AI. So it's a really good graphic. Take a look at that. One other question in regard to that graphic. If we replaced AI on that previous slide with classmate or friend, does your opinion change on where things fall in that graphic? And this is really important because we would want to encourage our students to collaborate and use all the resources available to them. And in that regard, isn't AI just another partner in this collaborative process? You know, the difficulty is finding the right level of AI influence. So, you know, we even have this issue when it comes to group work. You know, is the work being equally distributed, or is one partner, you know, bearing a heavier load than others? So it's really important to have more of an asset-based mindset when it comes to AI, and shifting the idea from cheating to affirming that, you know, students can use AI and it can, you know, be a capable and willing partner, but they need to do it within reason. What we really need to look at in that regard is that authenticity piece. If we provide the guidelines for how our students can use AI in the class, we need to let them use it in an authentic way and understand that this interaction with AI is something that's relevant to their future and something that you yourself are probably doing as an adult. So when we think of, you know, the answer to these questions, you know, are we rethinking how we can use AI? And we have to remember back to a time where, you know, students couldn't use calculators because it was considered cheating. Or, you know, as my teacher used to say, you won't always have a calculator on you. Well, now, in fact, we all do. It's all in our pockets. It's on our phones. So, you know, the integration of calculators in math classes really allowed students to start focusing on higher level concepts. So we have to consider the idea of integrating AI in our classrooms might actually help us shift our focus and present our students with more authentic and relevant tasks. And these are going to have to include problem solving and critical thinking. And at the end of the day, what we do is really rethink education and move forward, because student use of AI will only continue to grow as AI becomes more and more integrated in everyday tasks. So we can't teach backwards. There's been a lot of talk, especially early on, about banning AI and, you know, moving assignments and assessments back to pen and paper. You know, that's just not authentic. It's not the world any of us live in, let alone the world that our students are going to live in. And our job is to prepare them for their role as adults, to prepare them to live in this world that they're going to be part of. Additionally, you know, moving back to pen and paper for everything really does increase the digital divide. So think about students with disabilities like dyslexia, dysgraphia, students who have motor skill issues. Moving back to pen and paper just creates a barrier that doesn't really provide them with the tools they need to be successful. So instead, we need to move forward. We need to teach our students the skills they need to be successful in the world that will be. And what AI is doing is forcing us really to think about what we are assessing and why, how we are letting our students share their knowledge, and what that looks like in the age of AI. So we do need to rethink how we assess our student knowledge. You know, if your assessment can be answered by AI, it's probably time to change the assessment. And I know that's not what a lot of people want to hear, but it's the reality of it. Let's redesign our assessment tasks so they can't, you know, just be plugged into a chatbot. And this is really going to help students develop those critical thinking and problem solving skills. It's going to allow them to demonstrate their understanding in multiple ways. So we're looking at that UDL, you know, Universal Design for Learning. What is the learning goal? And then finally, additionally, we need to emphasize the process, not the product. What is it that we're teaching? What are we actually assessing our students on? Provide different options for feedback and self-assessment. We want this learning to be, you know, authentic, project-based. Think of real-life implications. You know, how can this be used in the workforce? How can I use this in everyday life? Ask your chatbot, I'm teaching students about X, Y, and Z. How can they apply it in the world or, you know, in the job market? Most of today's students are going to work in jobs that don't exist yet. But, you know, what we can do is we can use AI to help us as teachers find things that are relevant and meaningful. And then finally, let's talk about personalized learning. Let's promote student agency and find ways to ensure that all learners can access and participate in meaningful and challenging ways. You know, we want to acknowledge learner variability. We want to provide multiple options for how students can access and understand this information. You know, we want to think about that UDL perspective again think about different multiple means of engaging and representing. And one of the best things with AI that you can really think of is if you think back to your education classes and your pedagogy, we had Bloom's 2 sigma problem. And that said that the average student who was tutored one-to-one performed 2 standard deviations better than students educated in a classroom environment. The problem with this was that there was no way to find methods of group instruction as effective as one-to-one tutoring. Well, now we can have that personalized tutoring through AI. So as far as teachers, let's spend less time on the simple task and rediscover time for teaching and interaction. Whenever you're using AI, please remember pedagogy first. Chatbots are not trained on pedagogy. You are the expert, but these chatbots can really help you better support the students and enhance their learning. So ask AI for help with lesson plans. What design elements would make this more accessible? How can I better support a student who, has this issue or is confused about this skill? Lots of things that we can do as teachers. We can also use AI as a teaching assistant. We're going to rediscover time to spend with our students. Adapt information, modify skills, connect with student interests, provide, feedback, all sorts of ways to really connect directly with our students. And when it comes to students with disabilities, AI can also provide additional support. We've increased accessibility with assistive technology that's exponentially growing through the use of AI. It's becoming incredibly easy for students to get some of this information. Things that, text to speech and captioning and even translation tools, even AI that can read sign language. This is all just becoming standard that every student would have access to. It's absolutely incredible. We can generate those visual cues, those diagrams. We can summarize and chunk the content. We can support executive functioning and scaffold all these tasks, break them down into smaller steps. Great tool for that is called Goblin Tools. I love that one. And it just breaks it all down. And then finally, AI is going to give us that additional emotional and social skill awareness and give students with disabilities especially that opportunity to kind of practice and play and get more comfortable in some of these scenarios and interactions and conversations. So, we can kind of think of even like personal robotic assistants for this kind of thing. And studies have shown that students with autism really do well with working with AI-powered robots on this. So a lot of things we can use AI for with students with disabilities. But for every student, easy things you can do tomorrow. Have them generate a starting point. Have AI summarize or rewrite information on a different level or, in a different context. Tell me about this that, a student who's obsessed with soccer would understand. We have that personalized tutor. We can give immediate feedback. We can build independence for our students. So there's a lot that we can do. What can you do tomorrow? Give AI a writing prompt and have your students judge the prompt. Are they facts? Are they arguments? Is it correct? Is it good? Is it not good? Have them use a rubric that you've created and have them judge the AI. Have students synthesize responses from different AI generators. Well, Gemini told me this and ChatGPT said this, but Perplexity told me that one and Claude said this. If your students are using AI, have them journal or video how they went about it and how they've adjusted their prompts. You can talk to AI like it's a historical figure or a literary character and have it use the information that those characters would have. And then, as we said before, kind of do those authentic problem-solving scenarios. And then finally, an easy thing you can do it tomorrow, is do reverse engineering. Guess the prompt or spot the bot. Because prompt engineering is critical thinking. And as the AI interprets your prompts and instructions, it thinks about how to respond, it produces something. But those results are all based on how you ask and what you ask. So the better and more direct you are in the prompt, the better the end result will be. And this is where critical thinking really comes in. Because when we generate a prompt, we have to reflect on what works and what doesn't. And then we need to funnel that information down to get the output that we want. So this is working towards effective prompting, can really teach students how critical thinking and problem solving, give them those skills to think of, how to think as opposed to what to think. So in addition to the chatbots, there are tons of popular tools for students. Reminder, always follow your school and district policies regarding the use of AI. Use age-appropriate models, be aware of data collection, be aware of parental support, parental consent, things like that, and look for things that are designed to work within school districts. And then finally, play. Play with these tools just like you would any other ed tech tool, because you need to find the tool that works for you. You need to be aware that you're using the actual tool too, because again, deep fakes, there's even some fakes of these accounts who are trying to get your information. So just be aware, make sure you're going into a well-designed, authentic program. And then, learn it, play with it, model it to your students, because you can't model appropriate behavior if you don't know how to use the tool. So very quickly, key takeaway. Ask questions when it comes to AI, evaluate, validate, and refine your prompts. This is going to help you really generate some new insights and hopefully some new pathways on how we can assess our students and rethink what education is going to look like. Model appropriate use for your students whenever possible. This AI is going to be in every part of their lives, so we really need to be focused on modeling that use. Teaching our students to think critically and to analyze the information they receive and learn how to appropriately apply it. And then finally, we are all at the starting line. No matter where we are in the AI journey, we're all kind of starting at the same place. This is all relatively new, so we're all learning this together. And this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to be around for a while. So start working your way through AI, be inquisitive, ask questions, explore, play, and most important, enjoy. Thanks for joining me today.